Thank you all so much for coming to today's class meeting. We are in week two or three, week two, 152. Um, you'll read up on chapter two, an overview of ICD-10 CM this week. Your exam is today. So yesterday we pointed out some important stuff to pay attention to, and today we're gonna kind of go into that in more detail. And some stuff y'all are going to notice for your exam, and then some stuff that's just going to help y'all out with coding and all that. So I'm going to share my screen. No major announcements this week, guys. Everything's kind of the same as it kind of has been. Okay. So again, y'all looked at chapter two this week, and that was an overview of ICD-10-CM. Y'all got introduced to some of the how things are set up and how things are outlined in the book, and what are some of the important parts to look at and think about as you're going through there. So ICD-10 is stands for the International Classification of Diseases. Remember that when we're talking about ICD-10 codes in that manual, we are talking about illnesses, injuries, the what of what is wrong with your patient, right? Um, they always talk about the who, what, when, and the where. Your ICD-10 is going to be your what, okay? What is wrong with the patient? Why is your patient here? Your diagnosis codes, okay? And of course, this manual is issued and maintained by the WHO and is updated yearly with anything that needs to be updated, any code changes, bundling, anything like that. All right, so one of the first things that you're going to look at in your ICD-10 manual is the alphabetic index, because that is always where you're going to start when you're coding. Okay, you start in your alphabetic index, and in the ICD-10, it is right in the front of the manual, big thick section. You cannot miss it, and it's made up of three different sections. Right, you have your index of diseases and injuries, which is the biggest, thickest part. You have your table of drugs and chemicals, and that's going to be things like acetaminophen, Tylenol, all your different drugs and chemicals are listed there in that table, for you to be able to code those things whenever you need to. And then you have your external cause of injuries index. And that's where some of your funnier codes can be found. Because they want you to get real specific with your codes. So sometimes if somebody is, say, kicked by a cow, there's a code for that. There's an actual code for kicked by a cow. There's water ski accident, horse-drawn buggy. You were run over by a horse-drawn buggy, or you were in an accident as the driver of said horse-drawn buggy. There's a code for that. Okay, there's some really funny ones in there, but those are external causes of injuries, like what a person was doing when they were injured, or possibly where they were when they were injured. And there's different codes for different things. So that's a fun section to look at. And over here on the side, you'll see how the alphabetic index is broken down. You have a main term, which is going to be the term that you're looking for. If you're reading a scenario and you're pointing out your key terms, those are what you're going to start looking for in your alphabetic index. Those key terms is what we call those. And those are done in red, nice bright red. And then under that, you have subterms. Like if you have some kind of pain, generally you're going to have pain of some sort, and then it's going to get broken down by body part. It's going to specify down by body part or area of the body. You can also look up body parts in particular, and then they'll start going through illnesses related to said body part or something like that. But you see over here, it says abdomen or abdominal, and it says see also condition. So you would see, like, if you had pain in your abdomen, you'd look up pain instead of abdomen, okay? But it'll tell you that if that's what you need to do. That's where that see also comes from. And you'll see, guys, if you see it starts on the B and it goes down, there's a line. And then about a half inch in from that, there's another line. And those are your indentation lines, okay? As things get more specific, as codes get more specific, they indent down. And it works the same way in the alphabetic index as it does in the tabular. Everything indents down as you go down in classification, as you get more specific. So you may start in one term and I'll tell you, look, one indent down, and you'll look in that first one, and then you'll follow it because it's all alphabetic from that until you find what you're looking for. All right, and then those listed under in that first indentation are your subterms. Like I said, that's where things get to be more specific. All right, so after you've located what you need to in your tabular, or I'm sorry, your index, your alphabetic index, you are going to go to your tabular and you're going to verify that code. Okay, when you look in your alphabetic index, it's going to lead you to a specific code, and hopefully that's the one you're looking for. It's not always the one. Sometimes you got to go through 2 or 3 different what you think might be key terms before you find the correct one, and that's okay. No, that's normal. I have to do it all the time because, again, no medical degree, sometimes the terminology throws me off. So, but that's why we always verify in our tabular, okay? And like we talked about a little bit yesterday, we touched on it, and I told y'all where it was found. I think page 32, between pages 31 and 33 in your textbook is where you can find this little excerpt that you can refer back to. It gives you the chapter number, say chapter 13 in this example, and then you have your section, other joint disorders, which is going to be codes M20 through M25, okay? And then you have your category, M25, and in this particular one, M25 starts your first category, and then anything that has a decimal place behind that is going to be in your subcategory, and that's going to be indented down, right? Because it's M25.5. M26 might be something else. That's a different category, okay? So y'all see how it indents down? But you can always refer back to that, okay? So it's chapter, section, category, subcategory, and then sub-classification if there is one. Remove that. You can see down at the bottom, the sub-classification is where you're going to get your code to those last 2 characters if you need them, if it requires it. Your ICD-10 codes could be up to 7 characters long. Sometimes you have to put an X to get it there. An X is called a placeholder, right? Y'all read a little bit about that. To get that code to 7 characters, sometimes you don't have enough specification to go all the way to 7 characters to need it to indent down 7 times. But they want the code at 7 characters so that maybe later they can add on to it. As science and medicine advances, they add on categories, subcategories, and subclassifications. So in the future, they may have those numbers, but at this time they do not. So in those instances, we put an X as a placeholder. That's why y'all see some of those long codes that have an X and then an A or something similar to that at the end of it. And we will talk more in depth about placeholders in our coding workshops and next week. Chapter 3, y'all are gonna start diving deep. Y'all have already started finding like code ranges and things like that, and figuring out, hopefully starting to figure out how to recognize key terms. We're going to talk about that a little more in the next couple of slides though, and things like that. So, but chapter 3, you're going to get deeper into it. There's going to be a section on placeholders. There's going to be a section on Z codes, which are a whole nother ball game. Whole nother set of fun codes. All kinds of, y'all are gonna look more at what the symbols and the signs and everything mean and where you can find that stuff and really start digging into that manual deep. So if you have not yet labeled that manual or tabbed it, you know, like we were talking about last week, you really need to do that because you're about to start really getting into that main. Really start using it a lot for your chapter exercises and stuff. Okay. So any questions on how the index or the tabular is broken down, how it indents down, category, subcategory, anything like that?
So it indents down whenever there's more to the original.
Basically to provide more information.
Like to the original section. Okay.
Every time it indents down, it should get more specific.
And we want to go to the most specific
Yes.
as possible.
Always be as most specific as you can get.
And if there is, if there's, everything has a specification, there's a code for every single thing.
Pretty much. If it's not,
okay.
You know, and sometimes it's not relevant. So there might not be a code for something. But for most things where it's medically relevant, that they know when or where something happened, and also in cases like motor vehicle accidents and stuff like that, there's definite coding in there for that, because that helps if they're trying to work out the accident, who was sitting where later for legal purposes. They have medical records that they can fall back on to verify things.
This book didn't have any tab that came with it, right? Like the other book.
What?
You know how the CPT book comes with the little tabs that we can put on. This book doesn't come with that, huh? I
don't believe so. I don't think it does.
Okay.
No. I wish it did. That would be handy. That would be handy. But no, I don't think that one does.
Okay.
It's cool that the CPT does, because like I said, in both of them, you want to at least placehold the main chapters so that you can get them, go to them quickly.
So we want to separate it by chapter, or is there only certain chapters that we need to put tabs on? Because there's 21
chapters? At this point, I would start with the chapters.
Okay.
Keep it real basic. Start with the chapters, and then figure out as you figure out the things that you use the most or that you see the most, you'll start to want to add stuff in there, and then just do just do what works for you. Get more specific later on, because like I said, for right now, you guys, we're gonna hit every chapter as we're going through the book. We're gonna hit everyone. We're gonna code a little bit out of each and every chapter in the manual. But there's nothing really that y'all have got to, okay, this code, I got to remember this right now. It's none of that. You will do more tabbing for specific codes once you get to your job in your specialty and you figure out what you work with a lot. And then you'll probably be tabbing inside of one chapter a bunch of different stuff that you see all the time, just to keep it handy for yourself. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brandy.
You're welcome. Great question. Anybody else before we move on?
I see where it says, where it's talking about M25 joint disorder, and it says not elsewhere classified. If you're looking for something that's in that list, is that going to be something that unless you just know the book after time and time, are going to be going through, looking through all the joint disorders to find it and then realize, oh, it's not in this list, and then now I need to go look into others? Okay.
Sort of, yeah. Almost until it's something that you look at a lot or that you get real familiar with at work, you're gonna have to kind of go through everything. But what's cool about it, guys, is they lump everything together. Or if said code is not what you need, but it kind of should be there, you think it should be there, more than likely there's going to be a note that says could also be coded blank, and it'll give you the code, or see also whatever, and it'll lead you. The book, I always say there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There are multiple ways to find the correct code. You could start with 3 different words and all end up with the same code. Start with 3 different words in your alphabetic index, and they may all take you to the same correct code. It just depends on what you're looking at. But yeah, you're always inside of a section when you have a code inside of a section, you want to read what's up above it and what's below it, just to make sure that what you're at is the most specific and accurate thing for what you're coding.
And this book is just like the CPT code. We can't write in it or highlight in it, correct?
Correct. Not till after your
Okay.
certification exam. Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay,
notate in it yet.
okay.
Now, feel free to put sticky notes and stuff, but make sure you take those out before you go for your exam. That's what I would do. But like we talked about too last time, the tabs are not considered notes, the markers. So you'd be okay with those. Good question, Ryan.
Well, I got another one too, and this is coming from complete inexperience in this field. But okay, my brain, where's that on this is just assuming you're in your workflow and the doctor comes in, leaves you a little write up for what he did, and it's not very specific, right? It gets the basis of what he did in that exam or whatever done, but it doesn't go into specifics, I'm guessing. Will we need to be more specific or just go off of what they have wrote down?
It depends. It depends on what he's doing, honestly. There should always be certain things that are filled out for you. Like most of the time in most offices, they use what's called a super bill, okay, where they have one sheet of paper that when they go in to see a patient, usually the nurse or the nurse practitioner that sees somebody before the doctor, goes in and takes the vitals and all that. She'll have a piece of paper with her, or it may be done on the computer on a I think a lot of the times now they do it on laptops or tablets. She'll bring the laptop in with you and sit down and type in. She's typing on a super bill. She's typing in your vital records. She's putting in what they're doing for you that day. Generally on a super bill, there's like a list of the top CPT codes that they use and the top diagnosis codes that they use in that office, and they will check it off for you. And then you will get that and you will data entry off of that super bill and file it out. And that's a lot of times, y'all, that's it. That's it. We have to go off of what they give on the super bill, type it in, send it out. And every now and then you'll get a complicated case where the nurse is like, this is what happened, but I'm not sure how to code it. And then that's where you take your specialized training, break out your manual, and you figure out how to code, or the internet, and figure out how to code it. A lot of the times that's all it is. Now, when I worked for outsourced billing company in Alexandria, we had a trauma surgeon that we billed for, and his coder, that poor thing, she had her work cut out for her, because he would write in his notes that he did surgery on the wrong hand like once a week. He would mark the wrong limb like once a week. So she would be consistently checking his surgery notes and verifying those with the notes out of the office and on the hospital system and all this stuff. He worked out of the ER. So she would have multiple sets of notes from the hospital system, his office, our office, whatever, that she could mix and match, compare off of to make sure that she was coding the right thing. And there's a lot of times where she had to call his office back and say, look, have him call me when he gets a chance. I need to hear this from him, because I don't understand. I don't understand what he did here. So I need to talk to him about it. That's some in-depth coding. That's somebody who's done coding for almost 30 years though. Before you code for a surgeon or anything major like that, you'll have been in this field for at least a decade, and you will well know what you're doing. They're not going to hire you fresh out of the course to code for an orthopedic surgeon or something like that, or trauma surgeon or something crazy. So don't worry, don't stress yourself out about that. Before you get to anything of that level, you will have lots of training and lots of experience. And you'll probably have, I'd be willing to bet before she started coding for orthopedic surgeon, she worked in that office for a while doing something else. to get to know orthopedics as well as she knew it. So, yeah. Fun stuff. But a lot of times, especially if you go to work in a smaller office or a clinic or something like that, you're going to be handed a super bill to work off of. And it's going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy.
That worked for me.
Right? Right? It's good stuff. Excellent questions, guys. Excellent questions. All right, so these are steps for accurate coding. And this is the basic process, y'all. This is the breakdown of it. You will see this is listed in your textbook. We will go over this numerous times in coding workshops and chapter reviews, and you're going to see this many times over the next few months. But your first step is to identify the main terms or keywords. When you are doing cold coding, a lot of times you are looking off of what they call a medical record, and you're trying to decipher it. It's some kind of paragraph or blurb of such and such a patient seen to do such and such, and they want you to code it. Okay, no problem. The first step you got to do when you get these scenarios is pick out your main terms and your keywords, and you will start to recognize those. Anything that's an illness or an injury, a disease or a disorder is a keyword, okay? Pain, contusion, mass, diabetes. I mean, take your pick. There's plenty that you can go off of, right? But that is your first step. It's figuring out what your main terms, what you're gonna look in the alphabetic index, what you need to start looking at. All right, so after you figure that out, your next step, of course, is to locate it in the alphabetic index. Again, ICD-10, it's right in the front, easy to find, makes sense. For whatever reason in CPT, they put it in the back, whatever. But that's same step, same process for both manuals, okay? Figure out your keyword, locate it in the alphabetic index. Once you locate that main term in the alphabetic index, again, that's that original word you're looking for that's going to be in red, you're going to start going down that first indentation. Look at your subterms and figure out what you're looking for. Okay, I looked for pain. I found pain. Now I got to find what part of the body it's in. Is it abdomen? Is it arm? Is it leg? Is it, wherever? Left pinky toe. You got to figure out where it is, and usually going by body part, it'll lead you directly to that code. All right. You're going to follow and cross-reference any instructions such as C. Like again, when they looked at their example they gave was abdominal, nice, abdominal. And then C, condition, because they really want you looking for the illness or the condition. Okay, so you'll follow any of those instructions. If it tells you to see that, then go see that and at least see what it says. It may fit what you're working on better than what you originally thought. What was the first thing that came to your mind? All right, so after you've done that, you're going to verify the code selected from the index in the tabular. So you're going to, basically, it's going to lead you to a code, say K34, whatever, maybe just K34. So you're going to look through your chapters, and this is where it helps to have it tabbed, because remember, it's all alphabetical. So you're going to look through those first few chapters till you get to the chapter on K. You're going to open it up, and you're going to look through the list and find K34 or wherever it led you to go. And then you're going to read the definition of that and see if it fits what you're working on. And if it doesn't, if it's not even related, okay, then I went to the whole wrong place. Maybe I need to start again. Maybe I need to look at something else in the alphabetic index. And if it does, great, awesome. Very rarely, it happens, but very rarely is it going to point you to the exact right code, and that's going to be all she wrote. I'm sorry, y'all, give me 1 second. Sorry, 5-year-old home for the summer. All right, so very rarely is it going to be that exact code. That's why you don't stop at the alphabetic index. You never, never, never stop at the alphabetic index. And let me say that one more time because a lot of y'all are going to do it anyway. You never, never, never stop at the alphabetic index. Go to the tabular and verify. Because like I said, it's few and far between where it's just going to lead you to one code and that's going to be it. There's not going to be any specifications that you need to hit under that, okay? And a lot of the times around the definitions of these terms in the tabular are rules and exceptions, like excludes and things like that, those exclude notes and things like that. So you really have got to go and verify in the tabular. All right. Refer to any instructional notations in the tabular, like excludes. That's exactly what I'm talking about there. Excludes, any of those signs and symbols that mean anything, those are instructions, okay? The little red stop sign, stop, don't code this. Don't code it. Look further down, look for the indentions, okay? Things like that. Assign codes to the highest level of specificity. And again, this just ties into being as accurate and efficient as we can be. We have to be specific. If we don't get to the maximum level of specificity that we can get to, a lot of the times the claims will be returned and they'll say your coding's incomplete. You know, this is not, I can't pay you for this because there's more information that could be had and I need that information to determine what I should pay you. You know, that it breaks down just that simply. We have to be as specific as possible. So we code the diagnosis until all elements are completely identified. And basically all that means is that make sure you have gotten, if it needs to be all out to 7 characters, get it out to 7 characters. Recognize when you need a placeholder. And then that's the thing, guys. If it needs that, it's going to tell you that in the book. It literally tells you everything it needs. So all you got to do is read. If you're just paying attention to what you're reading around the code, you will get it. You will get it. Okay. But those are your steps to accurate coding. Basically, figure out what you're looking at. Find it in the alphabetic index, verify it in the tabular, and just read all the notes, follow all the instructions. That's it. That's all there is to coding. That's it. Let's see. So one of the things I do want to talk to y'all with and kind of practice today is about the keywords, because that's vital and that's your first step. And sometimes it can be the most confusing step because we're reading these scenarios that are written out by nurses and doctors, and there's some crazy medical terminology in there that we just don't recognize. And usually what's funny, my students laugh at me because generally when I'm reading a scenario for coding, the first thing I look up in the alphabetic index is the words that I don't know. That's where I start. I start trying to figure out what in this scenario am I not familiar with, because that's probably what I need to be paying attention to. Okay, so that's where I start. But again, there's certain words that you will learn to just key in on, so to speak, when you're reading stuff. Okay, so like for number 1, abdominal pain, what's the key word there? What's the giveaway?
Pain.
Pain, exactly, pain. Number 2, head mass.
Mass.
It's gonna be mass, right? Because you could have a mass anywhere, right? All right, so nutritional dwarfism.
Dwarfism.
That's correct. Dwarfism is our condition, is what we'll call it. And there's different types of dwarfism. Okay. Chronic fatigue.
Fatigue.
Correct. Fatigue. And chronic pancreatitis.
Pancreatitis.
That's correct. Those are your conditions and your illnesses. Those are the things you really want to hone in on the first. Okay. Chronic. Let's talk about chronic and acute real quick. Those are you hear those a lot because they tell you about the condition, whether it's something that this person has all the time, it's a chronic thing, it's something that they deal with on a regular basis, or if it's acute, it's a sudden onset of something temporary. Okay. Those are just descriptors more than something that you're looking for. You're looking for, you want to boil it down to the actual pancreatitis, fatigue, dwarfism, a mass, pain, a contusion, a laceration, a fever, nausea, anything like that, anything that can be a symptom, essentially, or that's a condition, illness, etc. Good job. Very good job. All right, so I wanted to show y'all, similar to what you're going to be looking at coming up, a basic scenario of what you're going to be coding. And in this particular one, they ask for the first listed diagnosis and the ICD-10 code. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to read this together. We're going to pick out what we think are keywords. And generally, guys, when you're picking out your keywords, that's also going to be your first listed diagnosis. We're going to talk more about that because y'all are going to get into the nitty gritty of that with chapter 3. Okay, so we're going to talk more about that next week. In fact, that's probably what our little Wednesday powwow is going to be essentially about, is first listed diagnosis and what we're going to be coding first. Because sometimes generally your first listed diagnosis needs to be coded first because it's the most important in the list, if there is a list of diagnoses. So it's important to recognize that one. And generally, your first listed diagnosis is also going to be the chief complaint. It's the main reason that they came into that office today, that they're seeing a doctor today, that they need medical attention right then and there, is for this reason. A lot of times that is going to be your first listed diagnosis. So, and it can also be, here's the other deal. It can also be something that has not been fully diagnosed yet. It may be a set of symptoms, and then sometimes it does not matter which one you put first, if it's a set of symptoms. But like for some, like if they come in with fever and chills and a cough, more than likely your first listed and main chief complaint is going to be the flu or something like that. But that's something that they figure out during the visit, right? They test for it. So they'll figure out that it's flu, but you're going to code it. They came in because they had the flu, right? All right, so reading on this one. Established patient complaints of shortness of breath. Upon examination, physician determined she needed more aggressive treatment for her current congestive heart failure. All right, so reading that, we've got an established patient, pretty much irrelevant for what we're looking for. We're looking for what's wrong with her. So established patient complains of shortness of breath. Okay, so that's kind of that's the first thing that I would key on. But if you look at the next sentence, upon examination, the physician determined she needs more aggressive treatment for her current congestive heart failure. So what do y'all think the first listed diagnosis is going to be? Her chief complaint, her main thing that's wrong with her.
The congestive heart failure.
It's going to be the heart failure, right? Exactly. So the shortness of breath is the complaint that brought her in, but our diagnosis is going to be issues having to do with her congestive heart failure. Very good. Yes, it's going to be the heart failure. So what do y'all think? Where would y'all start in the alphabetic index on that?
I would look at heart.
You look at heart? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. That would be.
Or maybe congestive.
Possibly. Heart would be a really good one to start with.
I'd look for failure.
Failure would be the other really good one to start with too. Failure and heart would be your ones that your main ones. Congestive you could also look at, but it's going to tell you, if I'm not mistaken, when you look up congestive, it says C heart or C condition or something like that. It leads you, if you look up congestive, it'll lead you to somewhere else.
So you always want to search the problem, not the part of the body that it's affecting?
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's something that's so weird that you're reading that you just don't even know what it is, then feel free to start with that body part. Because sometimes if it doesn't tell you C blank, it'll list out under that body part all the things that could be wrong with it, and you may find it in that list. Like I said, there's multiple ways to get to the right code. Sometimes you could start with 2 or 3 different words, and they're all going to lead you to the same thing. So wherever you decide to start, it's not wrong. It's just the beginning, right? But yeah, so let's see. I went
Sorry,
ahead.
Miss Brandy. I was on a doctor's appointment.
That's okay. No problem, Jackie. How's she doing? Or he?
He's doing okay. We just got some good news from some test results, so he's good. He's in the clear.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. All right, so I went ahead and I took a couple of pictures so we could walk through it together, how this looks for you and how this is laid out when you look in your ICD-10 manual, okay? This first one is out of the alphabetic index, and it is, I don't think I wrote down the page in the alphabetic index. I think I just wrote down the other page numbers of where they were. But if you look under the failure, let's say we started with failure. You look there, it's in red. And you'll notice, guys, that sometimes these indent downs go on for pages. Pages. And I mean, there's some, I think, what is it? There's one of them, it's like 6 pages long. There's one word, I can't remember what it is, but it's 6 pages of indent downs. And you just follow the alphabetic list till you find what you're looking for. It's not as crazy as it seems. But so failure in itself has like 2 pages, I think. So we follow that first line down until we get to heart. And y'all see it says heart, and then as parentheses acute, parentheses senile, parentheses sudden, I50.9. And then second indent down, because it's going to get more specific with, so it's adding something to it to make it more specific. Acute pulmonary edema, C failure, ventricular left, or decompensation. And then it just keeps going from there, right? But we know that in this particular instance, we're looking for congestive heart failure, right? So you're going to, under that first indentation, just follow, instead of reading all that stuff down, you're going to follow it down till you find congestive. And it is, again, out in alphabetical order. So you just come on down till you see congestive. And then it indents down a little bit with rheumatic fever. Our scenario doesn't say anything about rheumatic fever, inactive or quiescent. Ours does not say anything about that. So that's where I would start. Congestive, I50.9. That's where I would go. That's where I would start with my tabular, because that's the most specific thing, the most accurate to what we're working with. Regular old congestive heart failure. So you're going to flip through your tabular till you get to that chapter, and you're going to find I50.9. Right? And that's what this second picture is. It's out of the tabular section. And y'all see about a quarter of the way down, I50.9. There's no little red stop sign, so we can actually code that if we need to, if that works. And it says, heart failure, unspecified, cardiac heart or myocardial failure, not otherwise specified, congestive heart disease, congestive heart failure, not otherwise specified. It excludes 2, fluid overload unrelated to congestive heart failure. That's not something we need to worry about because that's not mentioned in our scenario. And here's the other thing to remember, guys. We do not code what we don't know. Repeat after me. We do not code what we don't know. All right.
We do not code what we don't know.
We do not code what we don't know. We do not guess. We do not assume. If it's not in black and white, it did not happen. If it's not documented, it did not happen. So we do not guess and we don't code what we don't know. All right, so we don't have to worry about fluid overload. And I'm looking around it, high output heart failure, end stage heart failure. That's not fitting of what we need. And then another section starts right under that, I-51. Complications and ill-defined descriptions of heart disease. That's not going to apply to what we're needing. So I-50.9 is our code. All right, did that process make sense to y'all? Y'all see how I started picking out my key term?
Miss
Finding it
Brandy,
in the
so,
alphabet?
there's codes that has different letters under some of it. So if we start, like, we say we're in the I-50 point, what was it? What was the code I'm looking at? 50, what was the code?
I-50.9.
5.9. And then underneath some of them, they have like Z and things like that. Do we need to go to that section? Like if it gives us another code, like, there's something, I'm looking at something that's got like E87.70. Do we need to go to that code to make sure that that's the right code or what?
It depends on what it is. If you could tell me what page you're on and what you're looking at, I could probably tell you.
Well, I don't want to hold the meeting longer. I was just curious because it's confusing to me. When you get a code, like, okay, let me find an example. I'm on page 903, and it's like I-50.9, heart failure unspecified. And then you go a little bit underneath it, it says exclude 2, fluid overload related to congestive heart failure. So if it says fluid overload as a diagnosis, we wouldn't use the I-50.9, or is it telling us to use E87.70 on page 903?
Page 903. I'm not seeing the I-50 on that page.
Oh, maybe we have a different book. It says at the top of the book, it says
See, but that's what I've gotten
50.813.
written. That's what I've gotten written. Oh, is this the new
I was like, she just read off
It's the
exactly what
page.
you got on the screen.
page 20? Okay.
Miss
What did
Brandy,
it
it's
say?
the page you have on the screen right now. It's the page that you have on the screen.
Right, but it came out of my 2022 manual that I have tabbed, and I've got in front of me the 2023, and apparently it's a little bit different. The page numbers are a little bit off, because on page 903 in my book, it starts with I-21.1. So give me just a second to get to I-50
I-50.9.
in this one, maybe we'll look at that. Okay. So I'm showing, all right, so which code were you asking me about?
I-50.9,
Uh-huh,
and it says heart failure unspecified.
right.
And so if that's the doctor has put, if it's like, say underneath it says excludes 2,
Uh-huh.
I mean, what is, it's just like foreign to me. It says excludes 2, fluid overload unrelated to congestive heart failure, E8770.
If it says
Is it telling us to use E8780?
no,
I mean,
it's saying
8770? Don't use
Yeah, your
E87.
excludes notes, excludes 1 and 2, mean do not code this together.
So you would put I-50,
0.9,
so how would you code it?
I-50.9.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you don't,
Okay.
the excludes
Now I'm
note,
confused.
like, first of all, okay, so here's thing 1. Our scenario says nothing about fluid overload.
Okay.
So we ain't worried about that. That's thing 1. Thing 2 is your excludes notes mean do not code this together. Apparently, there's a code somewhere that is for congestive heart failure with fluid overload. Apparently, that's located somewhere else. So we do
Okay.
not code them together here. See what I'm
Okay.
saying?
So if you've got that code for that and you're stumbling upon this code and you've seen that excludes note, you've messed up somewhere and you need to go back and recheck.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But that's why it's so important to read those notes, the excludes, and there are some that say includes, and all the different things, all the different things. But also, guys, if you look down at the bottom of the page in your manual, you'll see it has all the little signs and symbols in like a legend right there. And you'll see excludes 1, excludes 2, includes. There's also a use additional. If you use this code, sometimes, like certain codes, if you use them, certain times you cannot use that code without something else, without another code to go along with it. It's all in the notes. It tells you exactly what you can and cannot do with that code right there with it usually. Yeah. And if it's not right there with it, at the beginning of every chapter, there's what's called, I'm gonna have a brain fart now. There's a set of notes, and they're in green boxes. Coding guidelines. I couldn't remember that. Every chapter has its own set of guidelines for certain codes. Like vaccinations is one that I know really well because the urgent care clinic that I did coding and billing for, they did mostly vaccinations. They did a flippin' ton of vaccinations during COVID, and then they started doing them for monkeypox. So I'm familiar with the vaccination codes. There are certain codes that you cannot use by themselves. There are certain ones that are for certain age groups. Like if your patient is from 0 to 18 years old, you use this code. If your patient is over 18, you use this code, because the code for under 18 includes a consultation code. That's in the guidelines. The only way you would find that is by reading the notes underneath in that code, and then going back, it'll tell you refer to guidelines. And that's those green boxes at the beginning of the chapter. Is extra instructions, do's and do nots, things like that. But it's all there. That's the thing, is it's all there. And y'all having to go to this length to verify codes in the workplace today, it is not going to happen very often. Like I said, cold coding is not a thing in the medical office today. We don't have time for it. But you got to know how to use these manuals and how to get the information you need, so that when you do come up, your computer system spits you out something and you send it off to the insurance company, and the insurance company comes back and says, nope, that's not quite it. Then you have the wherewithal, the knowledge to go back in the manual or get on the internet, whatever you got to do, and figure out how it needs to be coded. That's all it is. It's not about memorizing the codes. It's about knowing where to find the information and knowing how to find the information. The information's all in the book. We don't have to memorize nothing. It's all there for us. We just got to start along the path, and the book will lead you to where you need to go, where you need to be, essentially. But yeah, that's why those includes and excludes notes are really, really important. But anytime you see the excludes, it means don't code this together. So no, you don't have to go and verify those codes. Unless our scenario says fluid overload and we're like, oh crap, that applies to us. Let me look into it some more. All right, so any other questions? Great questions. Anybody else? Nope. All right, let's do another one. All right, an otherwise healthy patient is seen in the clinic for exposure to tuberculosis. What is going to be our first listed diagnosis or chief complaint?
Exposure to tuberculosis, to whatever it said.
Tuberculosis, you said it right.
Okay.
That's correct. It's going to be exposure. And just like with failure, y'all, or assault or anything like that, You look up this main term, and then your subterms are all gonna be, like for exposure, it's different things that you can be exposed to, right? For pain, it's different places you can have pain. So you're gonna look up exposure and then find tuberculosis under that in your alphabetic index. And I don't think I took pictures of this one. No, I didn't. But, so you find exposure in your alphabetic index. Who wants to do that real fast?
I'll get the next one. I gotta grab the book.
Ow. This one's not too bad. All right, I'll give you all a hint though.
Yeah, I'm still lost on the fine code, so I can't be no help right now.
All right, so look it up. We'll do it together. All right, so for exposure, when you get there, and I've got it, our page numbers are off, so I almost hate to tell you a page number. For me, it's on page 252 if you have a 2023 manual. If not, it may be a few pages off from that. But you have exposure in red, and then it says see also contact with, which that essentially is what exposure is contact to some disease or some environmental factor of some sort. So we would follow our first indentation down, and it's going to go through a couple of columns till we find tuberculosis. And then whenever y'all find tuberculosis, somebody holler at me where we need to look.
It's on page 250, and it's gonna be Z201, 20.1.
20.1, that is exactly right. So 250 in that manual, and tuberculosis, she just went 2 columns over. It's not even halfway down, maybe a fourth of the way down, Z20.1. Now, I have that Z20.1 page 1628. That should be the correct page number for y'all. That's my old notes, so that should be right for y'all. And I will find it in here. It's going to be chapter 21.
It says, is it contact with suspected exposure to tuberculosis? That's Z20.1.
Yep. That's the only thing I see for tuberculosis. That's the only one I see for tuberculosis. All right, so what page did you find that on, Courtney?
28.
Awesome. So my note was right, 1628. All right, so I'm looking around it, guys, and looking in that section, and I'm not seeing anything else that points me to tuberculosis. So contact with and suspected exposure to tuberculosis, Z20.1 would be our code. But You see that little blue dot, right? We need to know what that means. So what does that blue dot mean?
Unacceptable principal diagnosis.
That is correct. That is correct. So what unacceptable principal diagnosis? What's the principal diagnosis? That's going to be your main diagnosis.
Your main diagnosis.
Right, exactly. So that means we cannot list that first. We cannot use that as a primary or first diagnosis in our list. But here's the deal. That's the only code in our list. So it's not really primary, it's not main, it's not above everything else. It's the only one there is. So you could also, your CPT codes that would go along with this, because every claim you have, you're gonna have your ICD-10 codes, your diagnosis codes, and then you're gonna have CPT codes that go along with it. And again, your CPTs are your procedures, your office visit, your testing, things like that. So you're probably going to code a CPT code along the lines of office visit, and then maybe a test for tuberculosis underneath that. You probably have 2 CPTs and then the one diagnosis, the Z20.1 as it is. So, but if we had other diagnosis codes that we had going along with this, those would go before this one, okay? Because of that little blue dot.
Ms. Brandy,
Yes, sir.
I noticed I look up the page at the top. It says it's got a red dot
Mm-hmm.
beside, look like a stop sign, but red dot besides contact with and suspected exposure to communicable diseases. And I read the excludes. Would that not be a possible primary diagnosis? No.
Because it's not specific enough.
Okay.
We know that
Too
this,
far.
yeah, we know that this person was exposed specifically to tuberculosis. So we've got to code for the tuberculosis. If we didn't know what they were exposed to, then maybe. But what you would do, you would not use the 2O, the Z20, because you can't, right? The little red stop sign says you cannot use this code. You cannot code it. So you have to code something more specific. So let's look down. We've got to get more specific than a communicable disease. So contact with and suspected exposure of intestinal infectious diseases, tuberculosis.
Yeah, no, I'd have done a little bit better if I'd have read the
Ebola,
legend down there at the bottom. Okay.
HIV. You would go down, you would be going down to, okay, so Z20, you would go down all the way to Z20.8 versus contact with and suspected exposure to other communicable diseases, and see if you could get more specific under there with whatever you were working on. See, like 8.1 is contact with bacterial communicable diseases. Viral communicable diseases is 0.82. So you can get more specific than communicable diseases. You've got to either name the disease or you got to figure out what type it is. Is it viral? Is it bacterial? And you have to specify that if you don't know the specific disease. But again, you can figure all that out by just going down the list and see what there is, see what your options are. And again, a lot of it is sometimes it's a gut call, which one. Sometimes your stuff can be kind of inspecific and you can't get in touch with your doctor and you go, okay, well, I need to make a gut call, and you'll do it. Sometimes it'll be right, sometimes it'll be wrong, and that's okay. That's okay. Y'all, claims come back. They just do. You're never going to have a 100% pass rate. That just doesn't happen. whether it's software error, your error, or somebody else's error. There are errors all over the place. But the thing is catching them and knowing how to fix them. Okay. It's never going to be your coding is going to be spot on all the time. Even when the system is giving you the codes, even when you're working off of super bills, you're still going to have errors that are going to come back to you here and there. Don't feel bad about it. That's part of the job. There are people who their only job is to fix the errors. That's all they do all day long is correct claims, send them back out. Correct claims, send them back out. All they do. They don't code, they don't file claims, they don't do nothing else. They just fix incorrect claims that have been sent back from insurance companies. Because it happens so much. It's just part of it. It's part of it. I think personally, I think sometimes insurance companies get on these kicks where they deny everything the first time. Like the VA will almost deny everything the first time. You almost always have to appeal with the VA on some things. But that's just the nature of it. That's just the
Now,
nature.
is that gonna be if it's coded completely accurate? Like you 100% know that that's the correct coding on that? Are they still gonna send it back?
It depends. It
Because I remember you said
depends. Sometimes
last week that you don't just resubmit your form even though you think it's right. You need to at least change something on it. So I just wonder if it is 100% accurate and they send it back, what happens then?
then you call somebody. Then you get a human being on the phone. Because if you send it back electronic, if there's nothing you can correct and you send it back electronic, it's just going to deny. It's going to come back either still wrong or duplicate. You've already sent us this. Don't send it again.
Right.
We've already sent this and told you it was wrong. Don't send it again. So then what I would do, if I didn't have any recourse electronically, that's when you get them on the phone or via email. Blue Cross makes it so hard to get a stinking human being on the phone now, that you almost always have to send an email. And you say, hey, you have all your information, your claim information. I submitted claim number, and give them the 16-digit number because it is a 16-digit number. Give them the claim number and say, I submitted this. You guys send it back, but I know this is correct. Can someone please verify? And I always, it may be a little passive aggressive, but I always, at the end of everything I send, please resubmit my claim for payment, or please reprocess my claim for payment. As in, give me my money and go on. Just process my claim, give me my money, and go on about your business. Because a lot of time that's what it is. It's just holding up the money. Like I said, there's certain insurance companies, I think, the first time a claim comes in, they just deny it automatically. I think United Healthcare did this about 5 years ago, because every single claim we sent them for 3 months, the first time we sent it, came back no authorization for claims that didn't need a flipping authorization. So we would have to call and say, you denied my claim for no auth, it doesn't need an auth. Reprocess it, please, for payment. And they would send it back through and it would pay without changing anything. But for about 3 months, every single stinking claim we sent denied the first go round for no authorization. No authorization is their blanket denial. It can mean 5 to 10 different things depending on the insurance company. It could mean you didn't get a prior authorization. It could mean your provider is not registered with that insurance company or not credentialed with that insurance company. It could mean the policy number is incorrect. Like, we've had them tell us so many different things about what no auth means. Sometimes we're pretty sure they just make it up as they go. And that's where sometimes you have to call different people. You have to go, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with you. I'll just try back and get a different representative, somebody that you can communicate with, and get them to understand what you're talking about and reprocess your claim. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it gets challenging, but that's the job. That's the job, is digging into it and getting the claim paid. And that's my favorite thing. I like arguing with the insurance company. That's where I get my jollies. Oh, you don't want to give me my money? Give me my money. I'm gonna make you give me my money. That's where I get my jollies. All my joy comes from right there. But all right, so great questions, really great questions. Any more? Let's keep going. No other questions on that? Is it making sense to y'all? Some? At least some? The process anyway?
So far.
Good, good, good. All right, so this one's a little bit different and kind of fun. A patient presents with a contusion to the left cheek, resulted from a fist fight, initial encounter. All right, so in this one, it's telling us, and the fact that y'all pay attention to how they list out this stuff, because it's going to tell you how many codes they want you to come up with. And if you don't come up with both the codes, then obviously it's wrong. So when it asks you for 2 codes, find the 2 codes, okay? And sometimes it'll ask you for 3. Just give it how many ever it needs to have. All right, so, but our first listed diagnosis on this one, what do y'all think it's gonna be?
Contusion to the left cheek.
That is correct. It's gonna be that contusion. So that's your illness right there, is that contusion. What do y'all think the second code might be in reference to?
Fist fight.
Office visit.
Exactly, the fist fight, how he got that contusion. Okay, so we're gonna look up contusion first. All right, so this is one of those fun ones that you have to have that. You see all these little red X's? That means they all need to be, if you use one of these codes, it's got to be done out to the 7th character. It's got to be 7 characters long, and there's going to be an X somewhere in there, at least 1, possibly 2, depending on how specific we can be. Okay, so if you look up contusion, it's going to lead you to, and you go through all the alphabetic index and whatnot, it's going to lead you to this code S00, I think it's, let me see, S008. It's the 0.8. Superficial injury of other parts of head. Superficial injuries of face, any part. So any part of the face, that fits what we're talking about, right? And you see down here, S009 is superficial injury of unspecified part of the head. But we know where our contusion is. So we're not unspecified. We're going to be up here in section 0.8. All right, so we start going through our indents, right? 0080 or 0.80, superficial injury, other part of the head. And then we look down and just look at the highlights, y'all. Unspecified, abrasion, blister, contusion. That's what we're looking for, contusion. Contusion of other part of the head, bruise of other part of head, hematoma of other part of the head. Okay, so that fits. S00.83. I do want to look at these other things just to make sure nothing fits better. External constriction, superficial foreign body, insect bite, other superficial bite. No, none of that fits, but we got straight up contusion right there. That's as good a fit as we can ask for, right? Since it doesn't specify anything else. Okay, so if you're looking at your code S00.83, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. We're 2 away from 7. We're gonna have to add 2 characters in here, okay? Now, we know one of those is gonna be an X. But here's the other deal. With things like this, all right, and most of them that need to be brought out to the 7th character have this. Sometimes at the beginning of this section, like you remember they said fist fight, initial encounter. Initial encounter, that's a keyword. Any type of encounter is a keyword. If you go to the beginning of this section, S00, okay, superficial injury of head, you're going to see this little purple box. A, initial encounter. D, subsequent encounter. Sequela. The A, initial encounter, is going to be used if this is a first time, only time they've ever had this type of encounter, because they have this for all types of things, okay? D, subsequent encounter, is going to be the second time they got in a fist fight and had this injury or whatnot, okay? And then sequela is just subsequent, the times after that. This has happened many times, okay? So we're going to use this A. And when you see this little purple box and you have one of these go at the very end of these make up your 7th character, is these initials, the A, D, S, or what, it could be other things. It's other things when you're dealing with maternity, because they have things that notate which trimester they're in and stuff like that. So your code is going to be S00.83XA. It's going to be your code, that placeholder X, and then your A, to recognize that it's an initial encounter. Okay? Whenever you see those X's, I highly recommend you look to the beginning of that section to see if there's one of these encounter boxes, and it's not always an encounter, y'all. Like, it could be anything that they need more specificity on or want more. But definitely look anytime you have one of those, it needs a placeholder. Usually there's something tying that in, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Do y'all see how I got S00.83XA?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, y'all see little stuff.
Hopefully we'll have more opportunities to do more of these, because
Oh yeah.
I'm just soaking it all in, but I'm as confused as a,
This
who
is the
knows
very
what.
beginning. This is I promise you, this is the very beginning. We are gonna, like I said, we're gonna start having those Wednesday meetings too. And that's handy because we were about to start coding workshops. So that's essentially what we're gonna focus on in those Wednesday powwows, is the coding, and we'll start out kind of easy, and it'll get more difficult as we go on. Will get more complicated. You'll have more codes that tie into other codes or can't be used with certain codes and things like that. You will, like I said, you do that. It's repetition. I know it's repetition, but that's what it takes for it to click. And one day you're going to be doing it, and it's all going to just click. And you're going to be like, I got it now. I got it. But yeah, at first it's overwhelming because it's all unfamiliar, and you're like, what am I even looking at? Jeez and Pete's. And that's part of the repetition, is getting used to what you're looking at, getting used to how it's set up, and reading your indents and things like that, and recognizing those. And y'all get there. Like I said, we are at the very beginning of this, the very beginning. So if y'all came away from today with any type of understanding of the process of how to accurately code, I'm good. Then today was a win. But that was the last one, the last example that I had. But I do want to look, did I do it? The fist fight code. All right, your fist fight code. And I don't think they have fist fight listed. I think it's listed as assault in the alphabetic index. Any type of fight, they want you to call it an assault. And then they list all the different ways of how you can assault somebody. This one, if you look it up it was assault of, a fist fight, the result of dukes. So assault by bodily force excludes submersion and the use of a weapon. So you, of course, if you're drowning somebody or you're using a weapon, it's not bodily, it's not going to be considered bodily force. So of course, those are going to be excluded. But see, right under that says the appropriate seventh character is to be added to each code from category Y04. And here they list your seventh characters: initial, subsequent, sequela. So same as the contusion part, right? So let's see, Y04.0, assault by unarmed brawl or fight. And then look down, it says bite, strike, assault by other bodily force. Brawl or fight seems to fit, right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 characters there. Y04.0. And this was the initial fist fight. This was their first one, right? So we're going to use what? The A? The A. But how many X's are we going to need?
2.
That's right. You're going to need 2 X's. So it's going to be Y04.0 XXA. And this was
Miss
handled.
Brandon,
Boxes right there. What?
I have a question.
What you got?
Okay, so whenever you said you looked it in the index for assault, the only assault I seen was sexual. So how did we find that one?
Let's see. Let me go back to the index and we'll exposure. And we will look at exactly how it's laid out. And assault, I think, is one of those that has like pages of stuff to look through.
Cause I see one on page 125, but it say assault, then they have sexual on the side of it, and then it say see maltreatment.
All right.
Then I even tried looking up an encounter trying to find assault, and I didn't see nothing in there neither.
I'm sorry, y'all. Brain fart. Complete brain fart. Assault is not a disease. Assault is going to be in your external injuries index. The ones that are not, the codes that don't specify a disease are not related to a specific disease, like say, or symptom or something like fever. Fever is something that's wrong with the body. So that's going to be a disease or an illness, right? And assault, that was something that was done to the body. That's going to, especially like the fist fight, assault. That's something that's done to the body. That's an external cause. The contusion is the illness or the injury, and the assault is the cause. So it's going to be in your external causes index. That's why you can't find it in the alphabetic index.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I mean, I know
that's my
like a
fault.
fight is not no disease or
Right.
injury. So I was like, where do I find it?
You're right. And I'm glad you said something, because that completely just.
And where is that at? The
Brain
external cause? Where's
I
that?
Your
think it's in one of our other books.
No.
It's in the same book.
Yes, ma'am. The alphabetic index is made up of 3.
I don't see it.
The alphabetic index consists of 3 sections: diseases and injuries, drugs and chemicals,
Hello.
external cause of injuries index. So y'all give me a second and I will find. Okay. All right. You see how your alphabetic index is that gray section? The blue section is your table of neoplasms, okay? The purple, that thick purple section is the table right after the alphabetic index, is the table of drugs and chemicals. Or at least it's purple in my book. And then you have an orange section. The orange section is the external cause of injuries index. Okay? And that is accident. That is the one that has like 6 pages of stuff. Accident, and then you look for assault.
Are we still in the ICD-10 book?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so lost.
All
It's
right.
gonna start on page.
You know where the alphabetic index is, right?
Oh, the beginning of the book. Okay, I see
Yeah,
it.
darling. Yeah. Your alphabetic index contains the diseases and injuries, the drugs and chemicals, and the external causes index. So they're all together in the front of the book before you get to your chapters, before you get to your tabular section. And it's orange if y'all's is the same as mine. It's orange section.
Yeah, that's just giving me more of a weight that I need to get my little tabbies.
Yeah, because I have all these tabbed in mine. I have the alphabetic index, the table of neoplasms, I have the table of drugs and chemicals, and then the external causes, and then I have each of the chapters. And then I have
It starts on page 603, Miss Brandy.
awesome. Thank you, Courtney. 603. See, in my stinking book, it's different. I'm gonna have to find my 2022 manual. This is gonna drive me crazy. All my page numbers are gonna be off.
So does that mean that they added more codes in this manual? Do they add new codes?
Not necessarily. They may have just added more guidelines
Okay.
or more illustrations, or you never know. You never know. Like I said, the only big changes that I heard about for this year were the addition of the monkeypox vaccine. We had codes for that. All right, so yes, assault. And if y'all are in the 2023 manual, that's page 621. But if you look under assault, arson, bite of a human being, bodily force, which under bodily force, bite, bumping into, sexual, unarmed fight. That's the fist fight, is your unarmed fight. So that would lead you right to that Y040. And then you would go, get more specific from there. But they also have bomb, a brawl. But y'all see brawl will lead you to that same code, Y04.0. Because a brawl is considered a fist fight. And then it goes on from there. Burning, crashing, cutting, drowning, explosives. They also have fight with hands, fist, foot, unarmed, which will lead you again to that same code, Y04.0. And it goes on from there. But yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Angel, for pointing that out. Because I totally forgot. Brain fart on that one. But yeah, so Y04.0, assault by unarmed brawler fight. Initial encounter with your 2 X's. So yeah. So there you go. All right, I think that's it. Nope, one more. All right, so after you find your codes, we have touched on the HCFA, and we'll talk about it in a little more in depth later. But for your ICD-10 codes, these diagnosis codes that we're looking at today, that come out of this manual, are going to go in box 21, and y'all see they're labeled A through L. And your primary or first listed diagnosis is always going to go A, and then they go across, okay, and then down, across, then down. Don't list them by the column, list them in rows, okay? Everything on your HCFA is done in rows. Your CPT, when we get to our CPT manual, those codes are going to be listed here, okay? Each CPT code gets its own row. And each date of service also gets its own row if you're filing multiple dates of service. But, so diagnosis codes in box 21 and CPT codes, procedure codes are on their claim lines. That's what they call this 1 through 6, claim lines. And if you're ever talking to an insurance agent and you got multiple CPT codes, multiple claims on one deal, multiple dates of service, they may ask you, what claim line are you looking at? Who's this on? And you can tell them 1 through 6. Okay? Makes sense? And that's it. All right. All right.
I thought I wasn't clear in like the beginning, but do we have any important announcements that we need?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
Nope. No important announcements. I think I got Latasha. I think I need to write you down, and then maybe Angel. And again, guys, this is the very beginning. This is an introduction to this, okay? So if the light bulbs have not gone off yet, that's okay. That's to be expected. I'm not expecting any light bulbs to go off today or even this week. Maybe not even this month. It may not go off until we get closer to done coding, after you've been in it and repeating this process for a few weeks or maybe even a month. Okay? So I hope everybody is feeling good about it, though. I really do. Because y'all are a bright group of folks. Y'all got this. Y'all got this. I have no doubt that if it didn't click today, it will click eventually. But any other questions, concerns, anything at all for today? Today was kind of long.
This is a little outside of the lesson here, but and I don't know if I need to go to career service with this or not, but here it is. This course that we're taking, when we get out of it, we go to take our test. That'll set us up to be a medical assistant, a biller, or a coder, or a biller and a coder. How does that work?
It's different, honestly, Ryan, different offices break up the job different ways. I've had jobs where I was just a medical biller, and I've had jobs where I was dang office manager and I ran the practice from front to back. And then I've also had jobs where I just did a little bit of coding. And I've had jobs that encompassed a little bit of everything: data entry, billing, claims follow-up, claims correction, and claims filing, and a little bit of coding for some accounts that I worked on. It just really depends on how the office is set up. Sometimes they want a biller and a coder. Sometimes they want one or the other. It just really depends. The only thing with the medical office assistant certification, that'll set usually, I haven't seen a lot of offices that had a medical office assistant title, but there's a whole bunch of people at the front end of an office that run that thing. That's your insurance verification, your receptionist, your scheduling people, your office administration, anything to do with the front end of that office, okay? Not patient care. Anything to do with the paperwork. Like, again, insurance verification, scheduling appointments, sending out documents, making sure that files and charts are complete, all that kind of stuff. That's what the MOA sets you up for, medical office assistant. The coding and billing sets you up for your back office jobs, your coding, your billing, your payment posting, your data entry on the billing side of things, claims follow-up, third-party follow-up, all that kind of. And again, it depends on how the office has their self set up. But
Now,
a lot of different job possibilities.
could we also potentially work at the insurance company?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I definitely need to talk to career service about that too.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't know how close or if you're around the Baton Rouge area, but if you are close to Baton Rouge, there are a lot of major insurance companies that have offices there that hire medical billers and coders.
Unfortunately, I'm north part of everything.
Then you would be
Shreveport's
one of
probably my
those
best.
pain in the butt people that it's hard to get on the phone and I'm trying to make you understand why you need to pay my claim. But that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I knew it.
We all gotta work. We all got jobs to do. I won't be mad at you.
Honestly, I'm
It would
money
be nice
motivated.
for me to know that there's a competent person on the other side.
There you go. Ever get a hold of you on the phone,
I
you'll at
know.
least know.
Let me know what insurance company you work for so I can ask for you specifically. I need to talk to
All
Ryan
right.
about my claim.
Hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and shout out if anybody's in Delhi, Louisiana, and y'all come through the Burger King, at least in morning or mid shift, hit me up.
I will keep that in mind. I don't travel through it that way often, but my husband does all the time. All the time. Especially right now, working up in Arkansas. He's got to pass all through it there.
Come right through there.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Excellent questions. Excellent questions. Anybody else have any questions or concerns for me while we're here?
I have
Oh,
one, Miss Brandy.
I'm sorry. Okay, Latasha, what you got?
Hey, I was trying to see. I know I'm almost done
Yeah.
with this course. I was trying to see how long. Do I finish this whole course out, or do I stop where I began?
You
Or
stop where you began. And if you give me just a second, I will look it up for you. I had that report up earlier today.
okay. And I just realized what I was doing wrong when coding the ICD-10s. I
Gotcha.
didn't know how to find the X's, but now I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I view mine too? Because I'm not too excited about her saying October. I was like, Miss Brandy told me September. Don't give me another month now.
Oh no, just look, y'all all are not gonna start or finish at the same time. Let's see. The only time, like if I tell you a date, the only time it's gonna get extended out is if you fail a module. And Angel, you know you ain't failing nothing.
You already know I'm not going down like that.
Yeah, you ain't going down that road. Let's see. Angel, I'm still showing you for October 17th. And Latasha, yours should be coming up soon.
So that's whenever I'm gonna finish all my courses and everything, or that's just the expected date.
I'm gonna have to get with them because your date don't look right to me on this list.
Yeah, I got told two different things. Miss Kelly told me the expected one was October 17th, but then I remember you had told me September 20th.
Let me email our registrar and get her to look into it, and I'll give you a firm date. A firm date, because what I'm showing on my, you don't even want to know what I'm showing on my list, so I know it's wrong.
Oh no.
So yeah. So yeah. But I'll find out for sure for you and let you know. And y'all, I'm still waiting on a resolution as to why the grades for 157 and 158 are not showing up. I have not gotten a resolution to that yet. I'm still waiting to hear about that. So that's
My
still in
grade for
progress.
152 has disappeared now.
You're kidding me.
No.
Okay. Oh, also, we are off Monday. I don't know if y'all saw that announcement. We are off Monday for just to recognize Juneteenth. So y'all enjoy your holiday, and it'll be a short week next week. Holla. All right, guys. Y'all got anything else for me while we're here?
I do. Okay, so I still didn't do the mock interview. I don't know if that was necessary or not.
Mm-hmm.
The lady still hasn't contacted me back.
They will. Like,
And
I've been finding with career services, the way things have been going, it's like, hurry up and wait. Like, you gotta do, but I don't want you to do till I need you to do.
and I still don't know my I guess graduation date.
Let's see, Sienna. November 7th is what I've got for you.
Ms. Brandy, if we don't have grades on the courses that we've already taken, you say you're working on that?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm trying to figure out why they're not showing up on y'all's end. If
Okay.
y'all need to know those grades right now, I can go in and look them up for you. Just send
no,
me
I
an
don't
email
need to,
and I'll
yeah,
email
I
you
don't
back
need
a
it.
list of your grades that I have for you.
Okay.
But yeah, I am working on getting that corrected and figuring out what's going on with that.
I just wanted to make sure that it shows that I completed it so that
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't push me
Oh, yeah.
back. Okay.
But yeah, and it's y'all, it's the whole group, it's the whole class that is not showing up. It's not just one or two of y'all, it's everybody. So there's something. But again, this is why we're switching to that new system. We're getting excited about the new system. We are, because this kind of stuff should not be happening. We should not have this many. Like, how many times a week do y'all get kicked out trying to upload something and get redirected to the homepage for no good reason? That should not happen. So we're trying to alleviate that. We're trying to fix it. Because it's frustrating for us too. Because there's times when I need to go in and make a correction, like when Courtney catches my typo, and I need to go in and make a correction, and I can't save it. I will correct it, and I can't save it because every time I press save, it kicks me back to the.
Miss Brandy, don't do me like that. I don't.
You catch. Look, I
I
think
have
what it
OCD.
is.
It's a
You're
bad
the
thing.
first
It's
person
bad.
in the morning. You're the first person that gets in and looks at the stuff. So you're the first
Okay.
person that contacts me. I
Well,
promise
I
you,
do
you're
try to
not
get
the
my
only
stuff done in the
one.
morning,
But it
so
just,
that's when I have the time to do it.
it seems like
Okay.
9 times out of 10, you're the one that catches it. You're the one that
Okay.
catches it.
Okay.
It's not a bad thing though, girl. That's painful.
Okay. All right.
That's focus.
Did we hear anything back from the honors, Miss Brandy?
I have not heard anything, surprisingly enough. I have not heard anything about NTHS yet, but I have not been asked to do any nominations. So you are still going to be nominated once we do that. So no worries on that. I'm sure it's coming. It's just, I think the switching with the new system, they're focused on that right now. So everything else is just kind of, we got to get everything running right before we can focus on the extra stuff. So I think that's kind of what's going on. But I could probably reach out to our director, and I could probably take over the NTHS stuff right now and get that ball rolling. Probably. We'll see. I'll talk to her.
Okay.
And see what I can do. But yeah, I haven't heard anything recently, so it's still in the works. But we would have done our late April, early May is usually when we do our nominations for spring. So we may do summer nominations this year. I don't know. A lot of stuff changing lately, so we just kind of roll with it. All right, guys. Anything else? Y'all are coming up with some really good questions today. No? That's it? All right.
I think this is the longest meeting we've ever had.
It is.
Is it?
It is. An hour and 45 minutes?
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the longer ones. And you'll notice that with coding, when we're going through coding, a lot more people have questions. There's a lot more back and forth, so the meetings do take a little bit longer. So that's an excellent point. But yeah, I try not to have meetings this long because I promise y'all, there is somewhere in my house something is being destroyed right now because my 5-year-old's been unsupervised for an hour and 45 minutes. But we'll do what we got to do. I'm not gonna get off of a meeting with y'all not understanding what I'm talking about, or at least with a basic understanding of what we went over. Yep. All right. Is that it? All right. Well, then you guys, y'all have a lovely 3-day weekend. I'm gonna unpack some more boxes because that's what my life has been about for the last 3 weeks. And everybody stay safe and happy and healthy. And hit me up if y'all have any questions. I'm always here. And that's it. Y'all be good. Make good choices. All that.
Thanks, man. Have a good weekend.
Y'all too.
Bye.
Bye.